Magic the Gathering just announced 19 new sets that are coming out between now and 2026, and there are a lot of awesome sets in here. So in this video, we're going to break down every set they've talked about and kind of give you a brief overview so you know exactly what to expect in Magic's future. Let's jump right into this. Starting off, let's talk about some stuff coming out this year. They didn't really talk about Wilds of Eldraine, so the first set they talked about was the Lost Caverns of Ixalan, and there were two big announcements for the set. First off, they're featuring a new thing called Special Guests, which are highly wanted reprints that can be found in list slots and in collector boosters. That's really all they shared about it, but it does mean there are more ways for them to reprint highly wanted cards into standard sets. The next one, and the bigger announcement, is the announcement of Universes Beyond Jurassic World. Similar to Transformers and the Brothers War last year, there are going to be Jurassic World mechanically unique cards inserted into set and collector boosters, along with 2 secret layers coming out around the same time as Lost Caverns of Ixalan. I think Jurassic World fits a lot better with this set than Transformers did with the Brothers War, as that really took me out of it, but overall I'm really excited to see what these end up looking like. Next up, they talked a little bit about the Lord of the Rings holiday release. This is a second release of Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth, but with new Jumpstart boosters, new scene boxes, and new collector boosters, and we learned just a little bit about the set. First off, we get to see a new treatment on Sauron here, which is really awesome, but on top of that, we got the announcement that there are going to be mechanically unique cards in the set, as well as the release of the first scene from the scene boxes. I'm not sure I love the mechanically unique aspect, but it does mean there will be more Lord of the Rings cards coming out soon. Alrighty, now we're moving into 2024 with the first set coming out in January, that being Ravnica Remastered. This is just like Dominaria Remastered this year, where it's going to take cards from all of the Ravnica blocks and put them into a single curated draft environment. This will have much needed reprints, including the shock lands, and should be really fun. I really enjoyed Dominaria Remastered, as it was a pretty low priced product in comparison to something like a Masters set, but still had a lot of really cool reprints that were needed and helped bring down a lot of prices. It'll also bring back the retro frame, and we've actually gotten our first 2 spoilers from it, that being Hollowed Fountain and Krenko. Hollowed Fountain is really awesome. Krenko, I feel like, gets reprinted every other day, but overall, I'm really excited to see the set and see what reprints come out to help bring down prices. Next up, we have our next standard release, that being Murders at Karlov Manor. This is a top-down murder mystery set on Ravnica. However, it doesn't feature any of the mechanical aspects of the guilds. It's just set on Ravnica, very similar to how the Lost Caverns of Ixalan isn't necessarily Ixalan 2, it just happens to take place on the plane of Ixalan. It's a thing they're trying where they're going back to existing planes but with new mechanical identities, and this one is going to be a top-down murder mystery that both contains mysteries within the story and can have mysteries and puzzles to solve through gameplay, which seems really interesting. Tied to that, they're doing this thing called Ravnica Clue Edition, which is a contained product that will be a new twist on multiplayer gameplay. This is not a reskin of Clue to be Magic themed, but it's also not a Magic release product that'll go into many formats. It is instead a contained product, similar to how last time we went to Ixalan, we had the Explorers of Ixalan game. This is going to be a game that is meant to put a twist on multiplayer Magic, and it's looking pretty cool because of that. Alright, after that, we are going to a universe beyond with the Fallout Commander decks launching in March 2024. These are going to be mechanically unique Commander decks similar to the Warhammer 40k decks, the Lord of the Ring decks, and the Doctor Who decks that we've seen already. These will feature brand new cards and will be themed around the different factions in the Fallout world, and it's looking pretty cool for players that play the game. I'm not a huge Fallout fan, so there's nothing that's going to really resonate with me from a lore perspective, but these Commander decks have always been really cool. You know, the 40k decks on top of the Lord of the Ring decks were some of the best Commander decks we've ever gotten, and so I'm really excited to see what we get there. It's also a pretty quick, turnaround. We had the Warhammer decks late last year. We're going to have the Doctor Who decks late this year, but then we're getting the Fallout decks early next year, which is interesting to see. Following that up, we get another standard set, that being the Outlaws of Thunder Junction, a fantasy Wild West themed set that is framed as a villain set, taking villains from across the multiverse and bringing them onto one plane. This is going to be an interesting set because it does 2 things that are kind of unique. First off, we're going to a new plane with a Wild West theme and kind of pushing it in a fantasy direction, which I think will be mechanically and visually very interesting. But we're also getting to take villains from across the multiverse and bring them onto one plane. And they really stressed how the Omen paths that were opened in March of the Machine allow characters to cross paths and allow sets that feature characters from multiple planes. And so this is a really interesting side effect that we get to have villains from across the multiverse, not just villains from one plane, kind of making the villain theme feel really strong in the set. Following that up, we are going back to Modern Horizons with Modern Horizons 3. If you haven't seen the existing Modern Horizons sets, they are ultra powerful, ultra complex cards that go directly into Modern, and this time they are introducing double-faced cards to make the set even more complex and unique. We got to see some art for the set as well, teasing the Eldrazi and a character from Theros, meaning we are going to get to see some very fun, very unique designs that can use any mechanic from across Magic's history. Modern Horizons designs are some of my favorite, although they can be format warping, so it'll be really interesting to see what happens when this set launches in 2024. Following that up, we get the Assassin's Creed product coming in July 2024, featuring a brand new type of booster, the Beyond booster. Now these boosters are really weird because they didn't give us a lot of details, but they started this entire section by basically saying that every universe's Beyond product has different needs. Some properties are best represented as commander decks, some are best represented as inserts into products like the Transformers and Jurassic World cards, and some are best as large draft booster sets like Lord of the Rings. They said that Assassin's Creed was none of these and was going to be a new thing that had something called Beyond boosters, which they said were non-draftable boosters that contain both new cards and reprints that will be legal in Modern. Now what this sounds like to me is another Aftermath. It's non-draftable and it's not a large booster product, so what is it? The only thing I can think of that would be non-draftable and not a large booster product is what they were calling a micro set, that being Aftermath. Now this could be more of like a mini set, which we used to get when they did blocks, where there'd be like a large set and then a small set and then a large set, which we could see something like that where it's not necessarily 300 cards, but it's not as small as Aftermath was. But my guess is that these are going to be smaller boosters that are intended for franchises. Obviously Beyond boosters are a reference to universes beyond, and so they're going to be boosters for products where they don't have a set number of cards. For Assassin's Creed, it might be 85 cards. For a different product, it could be 112, but that's my guess. They haven't officially said anything, but my guess is these Beyond boosters are just going to be different for every product, and that's why they started this by saying, hey, you know, every product requires something different, and that's why they're naming them after the Universes Beyond branding. It's that it's going to be different every time, which I think will be confusing to the average player. But next up, we have a standard set, that being Bloomburrow. It is a world of all animals with no humans. It is a brand new plane, and the new Dragonstorm arc starts on that plane. Essentially, every year is going to have an arc, the first one being the Omen Path arc, and the second one being the Dragonstorm arc. 3 arcs will make up the full story, but they said this is one of the cutest planes in Magic and will feature all animals, and we got some cool art from the set as well, but at this point, they've started giving less and less details on each set. Following that up, another standard set with 2 of them back to back, which is kind of rare to see, we have a Duskmourn. This is going to be a haunting based set with a modern horror theme. The entire plane is one large mansion, and as opposed to Innistrad, which is more traditional horror with zombies and vampires and, you know, creatures of the night, this is going to be more modern horror with jump scares and weird imagery. I'm really interested to see how they differentiate Innistrad and Duskmourn, because they are playing in a very similar space, but I'm sure they'll do a really good job, and the art we've seen has been really incredible. It is going to be a little jarring going from the all-animal cute plane to the modern horror, you know, terrifying plane, but we'll have to see when we get there in 2024. Speaking of 2024, that rounds it out, and they gave us this timeline just to give you an idea of when sets are coming out. Nothing in quarter 4 is really weird, and they did hint that there may be things thrown in there that are not announced at this point. I'm expecting a Master set in the summer. They normally don't announce those until the year of, so like Commander Masters this year and Double Masters last year. I'm expecting a Double Masters 2024 because they seem to like to do that on the even years. And then quarter 4 has nothing, which is really weird, so maybe they move the Master set there while Modern Horizons in the summer, or maybe they're just trying to give players' wallets a break. I'm not sure. I would also maybe expect a new Jumpstart set, since 2022 was the last time we got one of those, and they released that in quarter 4 of 2022, and so they may release the next one in quarter 4 of 2024. Jumpstart's a really great way for players to learn the game, and so always having a current version on shelves is a good thing. Next up, we move to 2025, with the first set being Innistrad Remastered. At this point, they're giving very few details and almost no images, so let's just quickly run through these. Innistrad Remastered is going to be just like Ravnica Remastered and Dominaria Remastered, but with cards from Innistrad. Just exactly what you're expecting, what you saw with Dominaria Remastered, the retro frames, all of that. I expect those, but on Innistrad. Next up, the first major release of 2025 is Codename Tennis. Codename Tennis is a death race across 3 different planes and is one of the first multiplanar sets we've gotten outside of March of the Machine. I'm really excited to see how they can take this 3-plane set design and make it feel mechanically and creatively cohesive cohesive. But yeah, this is going to be a racing style set, and we did get to see a little bit of art from that as well, which looks really interesting. They announced that 2 of the planes were planes we've been to before on Premier sets but have never returned to, and one of them is a plane that we've seen cards from but have never had a Premier set dedicated to. So what sets do you think we're going to? Following that up, we have Codename Ultimate, which is our return to Tarkir. They're basically taking the best of Khans and Dragons of Tarkir, combining them together for a brand new standard experience. This isn't like a remaster, they're not actually combining those things, but they're combining the mechanical aspects of this for a true return to Tarkir. It is not a backdrop set like the Murders of Karlov Manor or the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. This will feel like Tarkir. Following that up, we have another Universes Beyond set, this time Final Fantasy, which we've actually known about for quite some time, but now we know it is going to be a large set like Lord of the Rings. This will not be till 2025, so that means 2024 will not have any large sets like Lord of the Rings for Universes Beyond, which I think will be a good break, but this one will feature cards from all the main Final Fantasy games and will feature, the full product release just like Lord of the Rings did. That's really all we know, except for the fact that it will be coming to MTG Arena, which is cool to see as well. Following that up, we have Codename Volleyball, which is an outer space plane, and we got this concept art, and that's pretty much all we know about it. We saw outer space with Infinity, but I'm curious to see how they'll do it in a Premier set. Following that, we get Codename Wrestling, which is our return to Lorwyn and Shadowmoor. They said this is going to be similar to Kamigawa, where we are going back to the plane, but it will feel new and unique, while still retaining some of the really cool things that players like about Lorwyn and Shadowmoor. I'm really excited to see what the set looks like, because Kamigawa is one of the best sets in recent history, so I hope they can do something really similar with this one. Next up, Codename Yachting is the first set of 2026, and it's a return to Arcavios, the world of Strixhaven. Now, we don't really know much about the set, but we do know that they called it the return to the plane, not the return to Strixhaven. They did mention that it is the plane of Strixhaven, but I do think we're going to see a set here that isn't necessarily a return to Strixhaven College, but instead a look at the plane overall. Now, I could be wrong. We could just have a return to Strixhaven, which I would love, because I thought Strixhaven was one of the best sets ever, but it also could just be exploring the plane of Arcavios, and that could be really cool as well. And finally, the last that they announced was Codename Ziplining, the spring set of 2026, and this is going to be the culmination of all of these sets we've talked about today. It is the next War of the Spark and March of the Machine, and I'm very curious to see how it'll be different. We had the Phyrexians and we had Nico Bolas. Who is going to be the villain this time? It's actually kind of hard to tell, even though we know a lot of the sets that we're having. So I'm really interested to see what that will look like, and I'm excited for the next couple years of Magic. Alrighty guys, those were all of the sets they announced today, at least for paper. I'm going to be doing a separate video talking about all the digital announcements that comes out after this one. So if you want to see that, check it out here. It'll show up on screen now if it's already up. If not, you can also check out this video here where I talk about my thoughts on the colorless precon from Commander Masters, or this video here where I talk about the top 10 most expensive cards from Commander Masters. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.